There are objects in this world that are created for beauty. Crowns for kings, swords for warriors, books for wisdom, and treasures for those who dream of power. But once in an age forgotten by time, there was an object created not for beauty, not for peace, not for honor, but for control. A single ring, small enough to fit in the palm of a hand, yet powerful enough to bring kingdoms to their knees. It did not look dangerous. It did not roar like a monster. It did not strike like a sword. It simply waited silent, gold, and perfect. But inside that ring lived a darkness older than fear itself. A darkness that could whisper into the hearts of men. A darkness that could turn loyalty into betrayal, courage into greed, and friendship into war. Many believed power was something they could hold, something they could command, something they could use to protect the people they loved. But the ring had a cruel truth hidden inside it. No one truly used the ring. The ring used them. Kings desired it. Warriors died for it. Armies marched because of it. And entire lands were burned by those who believed they could master it. But every hand that touched it was changed. Every soul that carried it was tested. And every heart that listened to its voice was pulled closer to darkness. Long ago, the ring belonged to a ruler whose name became a curse across the world. He was not content with one kingdom. He did not want peace. He did not want friendship. He did not want life to remain free. He wanted every crown to bow, every army to kneel, every living creature to exist under his shadow. So he forged the ring in fire. Not ordinary fire, but the fire of a mountain where the earth itself seemed to bleed. There, surrounded by smoke, flame, and ancient evil, he poured his hatred into gold, his cruelty, his hunger, his will. And when the ring was finished, the world changed forever. The skies darkened. The ground shook beneath marching armies. Fortresses rose from ash. And the free peoples of the world learned that evil does not always come as a beast. Sometimes evil comes as a promise of strength, a promise of control, a promise that all fear can end if only one has enough power. But power without mercy becomes tyranny, and tyranny without limits becomes darkness. For years the world fought against that darkness. Great warriors rose. Ancient kingdoms united. Armies stood before fire and shadow. And in one desperate battle, when all hope seemed lost, the dark ruler was defeated. The world believed the nightmare was over. The people celebrated. The banners of free kingdoms rose again. Songs were sung for the fallen. And for a brief moment, peace returned. But the greatest mistake in history was made after the battle was won. The ring was not destroyed. It survived. And as long as it survived, so did the evil inside it. Years passed, then centuries. The ring disappeared from the eyes of the world. It slipped into rivers. It vanished beneath mountains. It was forgotten by kings, ignored by history, and buried beneath the silence of time. But darkness does not need to move quickly. Darkness knows how to wait. It waited while kingdoms grew weak. It waited while men forgot the old wars. It waited while legends became stories and stories became myths. And then, one day, the ring was found again. Not by a king, not by a warrior, not by someone seeking glory, but by someone small, someone ordinary, someone the world would never have chosen. And that is where the true story begins. Because sometimes the fate of the world is not placed in the hands of the strongest, not the tallest, not the richest, not the most powerful. Sometimes the greatest burden is given to the smallest soul, because only a humble heart can carry what pride would destroy. Far from the burning lands, far from armies and thrones, in a quiet place filled with green hills, simple homes, and peaceful days, a young traveler was about to discover that his life would never be the same. He did not ask for war. He did not dream of becoming a hero. He did not want songs written about his name. All he wanted was peace. But peace is fragile when evil remembers where it left its weapon. And across the world, the shadows were moving again. Dark riders were searching. Ancient powers were awakening. Old kingdoms were preparing for war. And the ring, after centuries of silence, was calling out to its master. This is not just a story about magic. It is not just a story about battles. It is not just a story about monsters, kingdoms, and ancient legends. This is a story about temptation, about friendship, about courage when fear is stronger than hope, about carrying a burden no one else can understand, and about the painful truth that sometimes saving the world does not begin with a sword or an army or a crown. Sometimes it begins with one impossible step, taken by someone who is afraid but refuses to turn back. Tonight, we enter a world of fire and shadow. A world of broken kingdoms, lost legends, dark armies, ancient evil, and one ring powerful enough to destroy everything. This is the beginning of a journey that changed the fate of the world. Before peace returned to the world, before kingdoms rose beneath golden banners, before songs were sung in great halls, there was only war, endless war. The skies burned above the eastern lands. Smoke covered the mountains. Rivers carried ash and blood across the earth. And deep within a kingdom of fire, a dark power was rising. He was not born like ordinary men. He did not seek wisdom. He did not seek justice. He desired only domination. To him, freedom was weakness, mercy was failure, and life itself existed only to kneel beneath his will. For centuries, he studied the ancient powers of the world, the secrets hidden beneath mountains, the forgotten magic buried within the earth. And slowly, his strength grew beyond imagination. Kings feared his name. Entire armies fled before his shadow. But conquering kingdoms was not enough for him. He wanted something greater, something absolute. He wanted control over every ruler, every army, every living soul. And so, he began crafting a weapon unlike anything the world had ever seen. Deep within the fires of a volcanic mountain, where molten rivers flowed like veins beneath the earth, the dark ruler forged a ring, a simple golden ring, small, perfect, deceptively beautiful. But inside it, he poured his hatred, his cruelty, his rage. The mountain shook violently as the metal burned. Flames exploded into the sky. The air itself trembled beneath ancient dark magic. And when the ring was finally complete, the world changed forever, for the ring was alive. It carried the will of its master, but the dark ruler was patient. He did not immediately unleash his armies. Instead, he deceived the leaders of the world. Great rulers were offered rings of power. Kings accepted them proudly. Warriors welcomed them with honor. Wise rulers believed the rings would bring peace and prosperity, but they did not understand the trap already closing around them. Slowly, the rings began changing their hearts. Greed replaced wisdom. Pride replaced humility. Fear replaced compassion. The rulers became obsessed with power. Some turned cruel. Others became paranoid. And all of them slowly fell beneath the influence of the master ring. The dark ruler watched from afar, waiting, smiling, because every ring bearer was becoming connected to him, bound to his will. And when the time finally came, his armies marched across the world like a storm of death. Massive fortresses rose from black stone. Creatures of darkness filled the mountains. Entire forests burned beneath waves of fire. Villages disappeared overnight. The screams of war echoed across the kingdoms. And everywhere the dark armies traveled, hope died. Many kingdoms surrendered without resistance. Others fought bravely, only to be crushed beneath overwhelming darkness. The ring had made the dark ruler nearly unstoppable. No sword could defeat him. No army could stand against him. And soon, the free peoples of the world realized a terrible truth. If the dark ruler was not stopped, all life would fall into eternal darkness. So an alliance was formed. Ancient enemies stood together for the first time in history. Warriors from distant kingdoms gathered beneath one banner. Elven archers marched beside human soldiers. Ancient kings rode into battle together. Countless warriors prepared themselves for what many believed would be their final battle. And at the edge of the Black Lands, beneath smoke-filled skies, the greatest war of the age began. The battlefield stretched farther than the eye could see. Thousands upon thousands of soldiers charged across burning plains. Arrows darkened the sky. Steel crashed against steel. Fire consumed the wounded. The earth itself trembled beneath the chaos. And in the center of that nightmare, the Dark Ruler appeared, towering above ordinary men, covered in black armor. His presence alone filled warriors with terror. Every swing of his massive weapon destroyed entire groups of soldiers. Men were thrown across the battlefield like broken dolls. Fear spread through the alliance. The front lines began collapsing. Many believed the war was already lost. But even in the darkest moments, courage can still survive. A small group of warriors fought their way toward the Dark Ruler. Step by step, through fire and death, they pushed forward. Many fell before reaching him, but they continued anyway, because they understood what was at stake. The battle became chaos. Smoke covered the sky. Bodies covered the ground. The cries of the dying echoed across the burning plains. And then, in one desperate moment, a warrior struck the Dark Ruler's hand. The ring was severed from his finger. Instantly, everything changed. A shockwave exploded across the battlefield. The Dark Ruler froze, his power shattered. The great towers of darkness began collapsing into ruin. The armies of evil scattered in panic. And for the first time in countless years, silence returned to the world. The war was over. The Dark Ruler had fallen. The surviving warriors looked upon the ring resting in the ashes, still glowing, still beautiful, still alive. Many immediately understood the danger. The ring needed to be destroyed. It needed to vanish forever before darkness could rise again. And so, the warriors traveled toward the mountain where the ring had first been forged. The fire still burned deep within the earth. The heat shook the cavern walls. Molten rivers glowed beneath the darkness. Only one step remained, one final act to end the nightmare forever. Destroy the ring, cast it into the fire. But the ring had already begun whispering, promising power, promising greatness, promising glory beyond imagination. And the closer its bearer came to the fire, the stronger the temptation became. His breathing slowed, his eyes changed. Fear mixed with desire inside his heart. He could feel the ring calling to him, telling him it was precious, telling him it belonged to him. And in that moment, when history itself waited for his decision, he failed. Instead of destroying the ring, he claimed it for himself. The other warriors watched in horror because they realized the truth too late. The war had ended, but the corruption of the ring had only just begun. And far beneath the collapsing ruins of darkness, something unseen still lingered, waiting patiently, because evil does not surrender easily. As long as the ring survived, the shadow of the Dark Ruler could one day rise again, and the fate of the world would once more fall into uncertainty. Years passed after the Great War. The Black Banners were gone. The armies of darkness had scattered. The burning lands grew silent. And across the world, people began to believe the nightmare was finally over. Cities were rebuilt from stone and ash. Farmers returned to ruined fields. Children were born beneath peaceful skies. And the stories of war slowly became legends. But not all evil had vanished. One part of the darkness remained, small, golden, beautiful, and deadly. The ring had survived. It was not destroyed in the fire where it was made. It had been kept by the hand of a proud king. A king who believed he could control it. A king who believed he could use its power for good. But the ring did not serve anyone. It only served itself. And from the moment he claimed it, the king's heart began to change. At first, the change was almost invisible. A colder look in his eyes, a tighter grip around the ring, a growing silence when others came near. He no longer trusted his closest friends. He no longer listened to wise counsel. He began to fear that others wanted to take the ring from him. And the more he feared losing it, the more the ring owed him. Power had become a chain, and the chain was wrapped around his soul. Still, he carried it, through forests, across rivers, into battle. The ring whispered when he was alone. It promised safety. It promised glory. It promised that no enemy could defeat him. But every promise carried poison, because the ring was never trying to protect him. It was trying to return to its master. And one dark day, beside a great river, the ring made its move. The king and his soldiers were traveling through the wilderness. The trees were thick, the air was heavy, and something unseen watched them from the shadows. And suddenly, arrows flew from the forest. The silence exploded into screams. Soldiers fell into the mud. Steel was drawn. Men shouted in panic. The attack came from every side. The king fought bravely, but he was surrounded. His men were dying. His enemies were closing in. And in a desperate attempt to escape, he placed the ring upon his finger. Instantly, his body vanished. The attackers froze in confusion. They could no longer see him. He ran toward the river. His breath was sharp. His heart was racing. His hand clutched the ring tightly. For a moment, he believed it had saved him, but the ring had no loyalty. As he entered the rushing water, it slipped from his finger. The king became visible again, and before he could understand what had happened, his enemies saw him. Arrows struck him. His body fell into the river. The current carried him away, and with him, the last living hand that had claimed victory over the Dark Lord was gone. But the ring did not follow him. It sank beneath the water, down through the cold river, past stones, past weeds, past the bones of forgotten things, until it came to rest in silence. There, beneath the riverbed, the ring disappeared from the world. No king held it. No warrior guarded it. No army fought for it. It was lost. And because it was lost, the world was given time. Centuries passed. The river flowed above it. Seasons changed. Empires rose. Bloodlines ended. Great halls became ruins. Names once feared by thousands were forgotten. And still, the ring waited. For the ring did not age. It did not rust. It did not sleep like ordinary treasure. It remained perfect, golden, silent, patient, waiting for the right hand to find it, waiting for the right weakness to appear, waiting for the world to forget what it truly was. And the world did forget. The war became a story. The Dark Lord became a myth. The ring became nothing more than a lost legend. Scholars argued whether it had ever existed, and kings, comfortable in their thrones, stopped fearing the shadow. That was the danger. Not that the darkness had returned quickly, but that the world stopped watching. Because evil is most dangerous when people believe it is gone forever. Far away from the river, kingdoms grew proud. Rulers became divided. Old alliances weakened. Men looked again toward wealth, land, and power. The memory of sacrifice faded. The lessons paid for in blood were ignored. And slowly, the world became vulnerable again. But beneath the river, the ring remained hidden. Until one day, a hand reached into the water. Not a king's hand, not a warrior's hand, not the hand of anyone important, just the hand of a simple creature searching for something lost. His fingers brushed against something smooth, something cold, something strangely beautiful. He pulled it from the mud, and in his palm, the ring shone again. After centuries of silence, it had been found. The creature stared at it. He did not understand what he held. He did not know the wars fought for it. He did not know the kings destroyed by it. He did not know that a dark power far away had once poured its soul into that golden circle. To him, it was only a treasure, a beautiful secret, something precious. But the ring knew him. It felt his weakness. It felt his desire. It felt the small opening in his heart. And immediately, it began to work. The creature hid the ring from others. Then he lied about it. Then he fought for it. Then he killed for it. A single object had turned curiosity into greed, greed into obsession, and obsession into violence. The ring had found a new bearer, and with that, darkness began moving again. The creature fled from the world, away from sunlight, away from friends, away from every voice that might remind him of who he used to be. He crawled into deep caves beneath the mountains. There, in the cold and darkness, he kept the ring close. Years passed, then decades, then far more than any ordinary life should allow. The ring preserved him, but it did not bless him. It stretched his life into misery. It gave him time, but stole his soul. His body became thin. His eyes grew pale and hungry. His skin forgot the touch of sunlight. His voice became broken. His thoughts twisted around one word: precious. The ring had become his whole world. He loved it. He hated it. He needed it. He feared it. And every day in the darkness, he became less of what he had been. This was the true power of the ring. It did not always destroy with fire. It did not always command armies. Sometimes it destroyed slowly, quietly, from the inside. It could turn a living soul into a prisoner. It could turn memory into madness. It could turn love into possession. And deep beneath the mountains, that is exactly what it did. Above him, the world continued. People laughed. Kings argued. Children played. Wars came and went. But below the stone, a creature whispered to a ring in the dark. He did not know that the object he guarded was calling outward. He did not know that its master's shadow was growing again. He did not know that every year he kept it hidden, the world moved closer to another age of war. But fate does not always move in straight lines. Sometimes the smallest accident changes everything. A footstep in the dark, a wrong turn inside a mountain, a lost traveler searching for a way out. One day, someone else entered the caves. Someone who did not belong there. Someone small, frightened, unexpected. And because of that single moment, the ring's journey changed forever. It slipped away from the creature who had guarded it for so long. Not with a battle, not with a great war, but quietly, almost gently. As if the ring itself had chosen a new path. The creature searched for it in panic. He cried out in the darkness. He clawed at the stone. He screamed for his precious. But it was gone, and the one who found it did not yet understand that he had picked up the most dangerous object in the world. The ring had left the river. It had left the cave. It had entered the world again. And far away, beyond mountains and shadows, the dark power that once created, it began to stir. Because the ring was no longer buried. It was moving. And wherever the ring moved, war would follow. The creature searched through the darkness like a starving ghost. His hands clawed across the cold stone. His breathing echoed through the tunnels, and his pale eyes moved wildly through the shadows. He could not understand how the ring was gone. For centuries, it had belonged to him. It had whispered to him, protected him, consumed him. And now, for the first time in ages, he was alone. The caves beneath the mountains became filled with his cries. He called the ring precious. He begged for it to return. But the ring had already chosen another bearer. Far from the creature's desperate search, a small traveler stumbled through the darkness. He had only wanted safety, a way home, a chance to survive. And fate had placed the ring directly into his hands. The traveler slipped it quietly into his pocket. And without realizing it, his life changed forever. Behind him, the creature continued hunting. His footsteps scraped across stone. His hunger grew stronger with every passing moment. The traveler eventually escaped the mountain and returned to the world above. Sunlight touched his face again. Fresh air filled his lungs. But the ring had already begun its work. He became strangely protective of it. He stopped allowing others to touch it. Years passed, and something impossible began happening. The traveler did not seem to grow older. Wrinkles never reached his face. The ring stretched life unnaturally. It preserved the body, while slowly poisoning the soul. The traveler started avoiding others. Far away, beyond the mountains, another shadow was growing stronger. Deep within the ancient Black Lands, something had awakened. The Dark Ruler was not fully gone. His spirit endured. And as his power slowly returned, he began searching for the ring. Among them was an old wanderer. He had seen kingdoms rise and collapse, and he had fought against darkness long before many were born. His path led him toward the small traveler. The wanderer noticed something immediately. The traveler had not aged naturally. One evening, inside a quiet home lit by firelight, the wanderer finally asked to see the ring. The traveler hesitated. He revealed it. The moment the wanderer saw the golden ring, silence filled the room. He took it carefully, holding it near the flames. And suddenly, symbols appeared across the gold. Burning letters. Ancient words written in the language of darkness itself. The wanderer's face changed completely. This was the Master Ring, the weapon forged by the Dark Ruler himself. If the enemy discovered where the ring was hidden, war would return to the world. Entire kingdoms would burn again. The traveler realized the truth. The ring was not a treasure. It was a curse, a weapon capable of destroying everything he loved. And outside, far beyond the quiet hills, dark riders had already begun their journey. Silent figures dressed in black, riding beneath moonlight, searching endlessly for one thing, the ring. After centuries of waiting, the ring had revealed itself again. And now the hunt had begun. The peaceful hills stretched beneath golden sunlight. Small homes rested quietly beside gardens and trees. Children laughed along dirt roads. Smoke rose gently from warm fireplaces. And far away from the wars and kingdoms of men, life continued in simple happiness. This land had never desired greatness. Its people cared little for power. They did not dream of conquest or build massive armies. The traveler carrying the ring returned to this peaceful world, hoping to escape the growing fear inside him. But even here, the shadow followed. The old wanderer remained close, watching carefully. He spent long nights reading forgotten texts, ancient scrolls, and lost histories. Warnings written by those who had survived the first age of darkness. And with every passing day, his concern grew deeper. Across distant lands, dark creatures were gathering. Old ruins no longer stood empty. Whispers spread through the forests. The traveler tried ignoring the danger, but the ring would not allow peace. It stayed close to him always, heavy, silent, watching. Late at night, he heard faint whispers inside his mind. Promises, temptations, power. The old wanderer noticed everything. One evening, inside a quiet room lit by candlelight, he finally revealed the truth. The traveler listened silently as he explained the history. The ring had to be destroyed, not hidden, not protected, destroyed forever. But there was only one place, the mountain where it was forged. The journey would be impossible. The Black Lands lay far beyond mountains and forests, and the enemy was already searching for it. Far away beneath the pale moon, black riders moved silently across empty roads. Their horses breathed like monsters in the cold air. They no longer belonged to the living world. Long ago, they had been kings. Now they existed only as servants of darkness. The traveler needed to leave immediately. But leaving meant abandoning the only home he had ever known, the quiet roads, the green fields. Sometimes, history chooses people who never asked to be chosen. The old wanderer prepared quickly. Maps were gathered, supplies packed, and so the journey began. A small group leaving home beneath the cover of night. The warm lights of the village glowed softly behind them. The group moved silently through forests beneath the stars. Every sound felt dangerous. Every shadow felt alive. Suddenly, a strange silence filled the forest. The insects stopped moving. The wind disappeared. The old wanderer whispered only one word. Riders. The riders appeared between the trees. Tall black figures mounted upon terrifying horses. Their presence filled the forest with horror. The traveler froze, and then he felt the ring calling to him, begging to be worn, promising safety, promising invisibility. The whispers inside his mind grew louder. The fear became unbearable, but somehow he resisted. Ahead lay mountains, ancient ruins, dark forests. The traveler looked down at the ring quietly. Beautiful, perfect, deadly. He truly understood the burden he carried for the entire world, because if he failed, darkness would rise again. Morning light barely touched the hidden refuge. Cold mist drifted between ancient trees. The travelers rested quietly beside dying embers while exhaustion weighed heavily upon them. But no one truly slept peacefully anymore. Fear had entered their journey, and once fear enters the heart, it never fully leaves. The traveler sat alone near the edge of the forest. The ring rested silently in his hand, golden, perfect, beautiful beneath the pale morning light. He stared at it for a long time, almost hypnotized. The longer he looked at it, the harder it became to look away. It felt warm against his skin, comforting, familiar, as though the ring understood him better than anyone else. And deep inside, a dangerous thought slowly appeared. Maybe the ring was not evil. Maybe others simply feared its power. The traveler quickly closed his hand around it, ashamed of his own thoughts. But the damage had already begun. The ring had entered his mind. The old wanderer watched him carefully from a distance. He recognized the signs immediately. Possession, temptation. The same corruption that had destroyed kings long ago was now slowly reaching into the heart of someone innocent. And that frightened him more than the dark riders themselves, because armies could be fought, but the ring attacked the soul. That afternoon, the group prepared to continue their journey. The roads ahead were becoming increasingly dangerous. Rumors spread across nearby villages. Strange riders had been seen searching homes at night. Travelers had disappeared along the eastern paths, and shadows moved where shadows should not exist. The enemy was hunting openly now. The travelers avoided main roads entirely. They crossed rivers quietly, moved through forests beneath heavy rain, and climbed narrow hills where few people traveled. The old wanderer constantly changed direction, trying desperately to confuse anyone following them. But even he understood the truth. The riders did not search like ordinary hunters. They sensed the ring, like wolves smelling blood across great distances. At sunset, the group reached a small village hidden among the hills. Warm lights glowed through windows. The smell of food drifted through the cool air. Music echoed faintly from a distant inn. For a brief moment, everything felt normal again. Safe, peaceful, human. The travelers entered carefully. The old wanderer warned everyone to remain quiet and avoid attention. No names, no unnecessary conversations, no mention of the ring. The traveler nodded silently. But fear and exhaustion clouded his judgment. Inside the crowded inn, voices filled the room. People laughed beside warm fires. Travelers shared stories over drinks. Musicians played soft melodies in the corner. The peaceful atmosphere almost made the traveler forget the darkness outside. Almost. Then suddenly, he felt it. A cold sensation moving through the room, as though invisible eyes had turned toward him. The old wanderer sensed it too. His expression hardened immediately. He quietly moved toward the windows. Outside, the village streets had become strangely silent. The horses tied outside were restless. Dogs whimpered nervously. And somewhere beyond the fog, hoofbeats echoed slowly through the night. The riders had arrived. Fear swept through the travelers instantly. The old wanderer ordered everyone to move quietly toward the back exit. But panic had already begun spreading through the inn. Some villagers noticed the growing tension. Others moved toward the windows in confusion. Then the front door burst open violently. A freezing wind filled the room. Candles flickered wildly. And standing outside beneath the moonlight were the black riders, tall, silent, terrifying. Their horses breathed clouds of pale mist. Their dark cloaks moved like shadows alive with hunger. The entire inn froze in terror. No one spoke. No one moved, because deep inside, everyone understood something unnatural had entered the village. The riders slowly stepped forward. Their hidden faces turned toward the traveler. And once again, the ring began whispering, "Wear me. Hide yourself. Escape." The temptation struck harder than ever before. The traveler's hand trembled violently. Every instinct screamed at him to use the ring. The fear became unbearable. The riders moved closer. The room grew colder with every step. The old wanderer shouted desperately for everyone to run. Chaos exploded instantly. Tables crashed. People screamed. The travelers fled through the back of the inn into the dark streets beyond. Behind them, the riders followed silently. Not rushing, not shouting. Certain their prey could not escape forever. The village became a nightmare of confusion. Doors slammed shut. Lights disappeared from windows. Villagers hid inside their homes, while the sound of hooves echoed through the fog. The travelers ran toward the edge of the village. Rain began falling heavily from the dark sky. Mud slowed their footsteps. Branches whipped against their faces as they entered the forest once more. Behind them, the riders continued hunting, always close, always patient. The traveler could barely breathe. Fear overwhelmed every thought. The ring felt heavier than ever. Its whispers became louder, more seductive, more convincing. You cannot outrun them. Wear the ring. Save yourself. His fingers slowly reached toward it again, and this time, he almost surrendered. But suddenly, the old wanderer grabbed him violently. His eyes burned with urgency. He warned the traveler never to wear the ring while the riders were near, because the moment he vanished from ordinary sight, he would become fully visible to them. The traveler stared at him in horror. For the first time, he truly understood what the riders were. They did not hunt with ordinary eyes. They existed partly within the unseen world connected to the ring itself, and wearing it would expose him completely. The group continued running through the storm. Lightning flashed above the mountains. Thunder shook the forest. The travelers stumbled through darkness with barely enough strength to continue. Finally, they reached an ancient ruin hidden among the hills. Broken stone towers rose above the trees. Crumbling walls surrounded the remains of a forgotten fortress. The old wanderer quickly led everyone inside. The travelers collapsed from exhaustion, while rain poured endlessly outside. For a brief moment, the ruins seemed safe. The storm masked their scent. The darkness concealed their location. But the old wanderer remained uneasy. He knew the riders were still searching nearby. And worse, he knew the ring itself was drawing them closer. That night, while the others rested, the traveler sat awake alone. Rain tapped softly against broken stone. Lightning illuminated the ruins briefly before darkness returned again. And in the silence, he heard the whispers once more, soft gentle, dangerously comforting. The ring spoke of power, of safety, of ending fear forever. The traveler closed his eyes tightly, trying desperately to resist. But every mile of the journey weakened him further. Every moment of fear strengthened the ring's influence. And somewhere deep inside, a terrifying question began growing. What if the ring truly could save him? Far away, within the black lands beyond the mountains, the dark ruler's spirit continued rising. His armies gathered in secret places. His servants searched every road and forest. And through the ring, he could already feel the traveler growing weaker. The shadow was coming, slowly, relentlessly, like night swallowing the final light of day. Back inside the ruined fortress, the old wanderer studied ancient maps beside the fading firelight. The path ahead would only become more dangerous. Mountains waited before them, dark forests, ancient enemies, and lands where evil had ruled for centuries. The peaceful world behind them already felt distant, almost unreal. Ahead lay only uncertainty, and death walked somewhere within the darkness beyond the storm. The old wanderer looked toward the traveler quietly. The burden resting upon that small soul was becoming heavier with every step. But the true horrors of the journey had not even begun yet. Dawn arrived beneath heavy gray skies. Cold wind moved through the broken ruins, while the travelers prepared to leave once again. No one spoke much that morning. Exhaustion covered every face. Fear lingered behind every thought, and deep inside, all of them understood the same terrible truth. The journey ahead would only become harder. The peaceful lands were now far behind them. The roads ahead led toward darkness, toward ancient places abandoned long ago, toward mountains where sunlight rarely reached. The old wanderer studied the horizon carefully. Beyond the distant forests, massive peaks rose into the clouds like giant walls guarding the edge of the world. Somewhere beyond those mountains lay the Black Lands, and somewhere beyond the Black Lands stood the fire capable of destroying the ring forever. But reaching that place would require crossing territories filled with enemies older than memory itself. The travelers continued moving through narrow forest paths hidden beneath ancient trees. Rainwater dripped softly from the branches above. Mist covered the earth like pale smoke, and every sound within the forest felt unnatural. The traveler carrying the ring walked silently at the center of the group. The burden upon him felt heavier every day, not physically, but inside his heart. The fear never left him anymore. Sometimes he felt watched even when no one stood nearby. Sometimes he could almost hear whispers beneath the sound of the wind. And sometimes he imagined the ring growing warmer inside his pocket. The old wanderer noticed these changes carefully, but he also noticed something else. The traveler was still resisting, still fighting against the ring's influence, despite the fear consuming him. That gave him hope, because many stronger men had fallen far faster. As night approached, the group finally reached a hidden valley surrounded by towering cliffs. At its center stood an ancient refuge untouched by time. Massive stone structures rose beneath waterfalls and pine trees. Elegant towers gleamed softly beneath the fading sunlight. The travelers stopped in awe. For the first time since leaving home, they stood somewhere untouched by fear, a place where beauty still survived. The people guarding the refuge welcomed the travelers cautiously. Their leader listened carefully as the old wanderer explained the danger. And when the truth became clear, a great council was called. Messengers traveled quickly through the valley. Warriors arrived from distant lands. Leaders gathered beneath ancient stone halls, illuminated by firelight. For the first time in many years, the free peoples of the world met together again. The traveler carrying the ring sat quietly among them, small, ordinary, completely overwhelmed by the powerful figures surrounding him. Kings, warriors, wise rulers, ancient fighters who had survived countless wars. all of them staring toward the same object, the ring. Voices filled the council chamber. Some demanded the ring be hidden forever. Others argued it should be used. The arguments grew louder. Fear spread through the hall, because everyone understood the truth. No solution seemed possible. Then finally, the old wanderer spoke. The room slowly fell silent. His voice carried the weight of ancient memory. He reminded them what had happened long ago, how powerful kings had fallen, how the Dark Ruler could never be defeated while the ring survived. And then he revealed the only path remaining. The ring had to be destroyed, cast back into the fire where it was forged. The chamber became silent once more, because everyone understood what this meant. The journey would lead directly into the heart of darkness. Only a small group might succeed, a group capable of moving unseen. The traveler listened quietly, while fear tightened inside his chest. And then, slowly, he stood. The entire chamber turned toward him. His voice was uncertain, but despite the fear, he spoke. He would carry the ring. Silence filled the hall. Many stared at him in disbelief. The old wanderer watched him carefully. Pride and sadness mixed within his eyes. Real courage is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to continue despite fear. One by one, others stepped forward to join the journey. A warrior from the northern kingdoms, a skilled archer, a proud fighter, faithful companions, and the old wanderer himself. Together, they formed a fellowship, not bound by power, but by a single impossible mission: protect the ring bearer, reach the Fire Mountain. That night, the fellowship prepared quietly for departure. Weapons were sharpened beside torchlight, maps studied carefully. The traveler walked alone through the silent gardens. Moonlight reflected softly across rivers and waterfalls. Everything felt peaceful, but the ring rested heavily against his chest, a constant reminder that peace could never last while it survived. The old wanderer joined him beside the river. He warned him about the road ahead. Darkness would test him. The ring would tempt him. But he also reminded him, even the smallest person can change the course of the future. The next morning, the fellowship departed. The gates opened slowly behind them. Cold mountain wind greeted their faces. Ahead stretched a world growing darker. Snow-covered mountains towered. Ancient forests covered the valleys. Ruined watchtowers stood silently. The fellowship moved carefully across the wilderness. At first, hope still traveled with them. They shared stories beside campfires, but darkness was already watching them, far away. Within the Black Lands, the Dark Ruler's servants sensed movement. Spies crossed the mountains. Creatures searched ancient roads, and the Black Riders continued hunting tirelessly beneath moonlit skies. Days later, the fellowship reached the foot of the great mountains. Towering walls of snow and stone blocked the sky itself. Freezing winds screamed through narrow paths. The old wanderer studied the dangerous slopes carefully. Crossing the mountains would be deadly, but below the mountains, older horrors waited beneath the earth. The fellowship faced an impossible choice: risk death in the frozen heights, or descend into darkness buried beneath the world itself. And deep inside the traveler's pocket, the ring waited silently, patiently, as though it already knew suffering was only beginning. The wind howled across the frozen mountains like the cry of ancient spirits. Snow covered the narrow paths. Ice clung to the cliffs, and every step forward became a battle against the freezing world itself. The fellowship climbed carefully through the storm. Their breaths formed pale clouds in the air. Their hands trembled from cold and exhaustion. The traveler carrying the ring struggled to continue. The burden upon him seemed heavier with every mile, not only because of the journey, but because the ring itself was growing stronger. The closer they moved toward the Black Lands, the more alive it felt. Sometimes he could feel it pulsing softly. Sometimes he imagined hearing whispers hidden beneath the storm, or feared the ring was understanding his deepest thoughts. The mountain itself seemed to resist them. Snow crashed from the cliffs without warning. Sharp winds nearly threw them into the abyss below. One night, while resting beneath a rocky shelter, the old wanderer stood alone at the edge of the cliff. His face looked very troubled. The warrior approached quietly beside him. Together they stared toward the distant east, where darkness waited beyond the horizon. The old wanderer spoke his fear. The enemy already knew they were moving. The shadow could feel the ring drawing closer. The warrior asked the question everyone feared. Could the traveler truly resist the ring long enough? The old wanderer was no longer certain. The next morning, the storm worsened. Path disappeared beneath ice and wind. The old wanderer made a painful decision. They could not continue through the mountains. There was only one remaining path. Beneath the mountains lay an ancient underground kingdom abandoned long ago. Now, it was only a place of death. Massive stone doors stood half buried beneath snow and shadow. Darkness stretched endlessly beyond them. Even the mountains seemed afraid of what slept below. Slowly they entered. Torchlight flickered against enormous stone halls. Ancient pillars rose like giant trees into darkness. The silence felt unnatural. The traveler stared in awe and fear. Once, this place must have been magnificent. Now it felt like a tomb. Every footstep echoed endlessly. Old armor and broken weapons lay scattered across the floors, signs of some terrible battle. The old wanderer remained alert, searching the darkness. They discovered a massive chamber filled with ancient tombs. Among the ruins, they found records describing the final days. The wanderer's face darkened with dread. A kingdom had not fallen to war, but to something awakened beneath the mountain. Something ancient, something terrible. A sound echoed. Pale creatures, twisted and hungry, began emerging. Dozens of glowing eyes appeared across the darkness surrounding them. The creatures attacked without warning, screeching through the halls. Arrows flew. Swords clashed against claws and bone. The chamber exploded into chaos. The traveler stumbled backward in terror, while the others fought. Hundreds more creatures poured from hidden tunnels. They were trapped. Then another sound appeared, something far worse. A deep roar thundered, powerful enough to shake the mountain. The ancient horror was awake. Firelight erupted. A gigantic shadow emerged, wrapped in flame and smoke. Its eyes burned like living fire. Its roar shook the ancient halls. The fellowship ran for their lives across narrow stone bridges. The ancient monster pursued them through collapsing tunnels. Death surrounded them completely. The old wanderer turned toward the others, his expression calm despite the chaos. He ordered the fellowship to continue without him. The demon charged. The old wanderer stood firm. Light blazed from his weapon. Fire exploded across the darkness. The bridge cracked. With one final blow, the bridge shattered. The demon fell. But as it disappeared, a burning whip lashed upward, wrapping around the old wanderer. Their eyes met across the collapsing bridge. Then both figures vanished into the darkness below. Silence followed, heavy, terrible. The fellowship escaped the mountain broken and exhausted. The journey no longer felt like an adventure. Now it felt like survival. For the traveler carrying the ring, the burden became far heavier, because the one person who truly understood the darkness ahead was gone. The fellowship emerged from the mountains beneath a sky filled with gray clouds. Cold winds swept across the hills. Rain fell softly upon broken stone and dead grass. And behind them, the ancient underground kingdom disappeared into silence once more. No one spoke, not after what had happened below the mountain. The loss of the old wanderer hung heavily over the group. The traveler carrying the ring walked quietly at the center of the fellowship. His eyes no longer carried the same innocence. Fear had changed him. Grief had changed him. And somewhere deep inside, the ring was changing him too. The Fellowship continued south through vast wilderness untouched by civilization. Ancient forests covered the land like endless oceans of green. Massive rivers cut through valleys beneath towering cliffs. And everywhere, ruins of forgotten kingdoms stood abandoned beneath vines and moss. The world felt older now, darker, as though the closer they moved toward the Black Lands, the more the light itself weakened. The warrior carrying the blood of ancient kings slowly became the new guide, strong, disciplined, protective. Yet even he struggled beneath the growing pressure surrounding the ring. The burden affected everyone differently. Some became fearful, others became angry, and some began secretly wondering whether the ring should truly be destroyed at all. That was the ring's greatest power, not domination through force, but corruption through desire. One evening, the Fellowship reached a beautiful forest untouched by war. Golden leaves drifted softly through the air. Ancient trees glowed beneath silver moonlight. And for the first time since leaving the mountains, peace returned briefly to the group. The people guarding the forest welcomed the Fellowship carefully. They offered food, shelter, rest. But even there, the ring continued poisoning the hearts around it. The traveler carrying it slept poorly. He saw burning cities, shadow armies, the great eye of darkness searching endlessly across the world. And always, the ring called to him, sometimes softly, sometimes violently, but always patiently. The warrior leading the Fellowship noticed the traveler weakening. He saw exhaustion growing in his face, fear growing behind his eyes, and slowly, another dangerous thought began growing inside the warrior's own heart. Perhaps the ring should belong to someone stronger. The Fellowship eventually departed from the forest and continued toward the great riverlands leading closer to the Black Lands. Enemy scouts appeared more frequently. Dark creatures moved through the hills at night, and rumors of war spread across every village. The shadow was rising openly now. Entire kingdoms prepared for battle. The traveler felt the pressure constantly. The closer they came to the enemy, the heavier the ring became. He imagined the ring growing hot like burning metal against his chest. One afternoon, the Fellowship stopped beside a river surrounded by broken ruins. The water moved quietly beneath gray skies. The traveler sat alone beneath a tree while the others prepared supplies nearby. And that was when the warrior approached him. At first, his voice remained calm. He spoke about the need for strength. But beneath his words, the traveler sensed something darker. Fear spread through the traveler instantly. He stepped backward protectively. The warrior's eyes slowly changed. The temptation revealed itself. The warrior reached desperately toward the ring. The traveler stumbled backward in terror. Voices rose beside the river. Then suddenly, the warrior stopped. Reality returned to his face. Horror filled his eyes as he realized what he had almost done. But the damage was already done. The traveler no longer felt safe, not even among the Fellowship. Quietly, before sunrise, the traveler slipped away toward the river. But one loyal companion discovered him before he escaped. The companion refused to abandon him. Friendship mattered more than survival, and together, the two small travelers crossed the river alone. When the others discovered the disappearance, panic spread instantly. Then suddenly, war horns echoed through the forest. Dark creatures attacked from the hills without warning. Arrows filled the air. The Fellowship was forced into battle immediately. The warrior fought fiercely to protect the remaining companions. Steel clashed beneath the trees. The Fellowship was breaking apart. The traveler, carrying the ring, looked back from across the river in horror. Smoke rose through the distant trees. The Fellowship that once stood united was now shattered, separated by fear, separated by war. Yet despite the grief, the traveler continued forward, because the mission still remained. The ring had to be destroyed, far away, within the Black Lands. The great eye of darkness turned slowly, watching, searching, waiting. The river moved quietly beneath the gray sky. Cold wind drifted through the broken trees, and far beyond the distant mountains, darkness continued rising. The fellowship was broken. The great journey that began with hope and unity had been torn apart by fear, war, and the terrible power of the ring. Some companions were gone forever. Some had been separated by battle, and others now walked alone toward uncertain destinies. The traveler carrying the ring stood silently at the edge of the river. His cloak moved softly in the wind. Exhaustion covered his face, but something else lived behind his eyes now. Understanding. At last, he understood the true weight of the burden he carried. The ring was not simply dangerous, it was alive. It poisoned every heart around it. It turned fear into despair, strength into pride, friendship into suspicion. And the closer it came to the Black Lands, the stronger its darkness became. Yet despite everything, the journey was not over. Far ahead, beyond forests, mountains, ruins, and shadow, the Fire Mountain still waited. The only place where the ring could finally be destroyed. But the road ahead would be worse than anything they had faced before. The Black Lands were awakening. Massive armies gathered beneath dark banners. Ancient creatures crawled from forgotten caves. Entire kingdoms prepared for war. And above it all, the great eye of darkness searched endlessly for the ring. Watching, waiting, hunting. The traveler looked toward the horizon quietly. Fear still lived inside him. But so did courage. Not the courage of kings. Not the courage of mighty warriors. But the quiet courage to keep moving forward, even when hope seemed impossible. Beside him stood the one companion who refused to abandon him. Together, they would walk into lands where few ever returned. Into darkness where even sunlight feared to shine. Into the heart of the enemy itself. And somewhere far behind them, the scattered members of the Fellowship continued fighting their own battles against the growing shadow. Because the war for the fate of the world had already begun, and no one would escape unchanged. The ring continued whispering softly, patiently, promising power, promising safety, promising that surrender would be easier than suffering. But the traveler tightened his grip and continued walking, step by step, toward fire, toward darkness, toward destiny. Because sometimes the smallest soul carries the greatest burden. And sometimes the fate of all life depends not on strength, but on the simple decision to keep going. Far away, within the black tower rising above the burning lands, the great eye opened fully. Flames moved beneath it like rivers of hatred. And for the first time in centuries, the dark ruler smiled. Because the ring was coming closer. Closer to the land where it was born. Closer to the place where darkness waited. Closer to the final battle that would decide the fate of the world forever. This was only the beginning. The road ahead would lead through dead lands, ancient evil, massive wars, betrayal, sacrifice, and horrors beyond imagination. The shadow was rising. The final journey had begun. And soon, the world would either witness the destruction of darkness forever, or fall beneath its shadow for all eternity. To be continued.